Welcome to the new KCTS 9 Connects, taking you beyond the headlines of Northwest news, issues, and politics. Our nation's prisons have a bad reputation on being overcrowded and unsuccessful, especially when it comes to rehabilitation. 20 years ago, there were 3 prisons in Washington state. Now there are 16. But at one local prison, there is a green revolution going on behind bars that's helping the planet and prisoners. At 21, Craig Ehrlich had everything going for him. A former high school valedictorian, he was one of the University of Washington's top cellular and molecular biology students.
I was going to attend medical school after college.
When he wasn't studying, he was volunteering at local hospitals with big brothers and working on an emergency medical technician certificate. But everything changed on a warm April night in 2004.
I was drinking with one of my friends, well, several of my friends. One of them, it was his birthday party, which is the main reason we were celebrating.
After a few drinks and an impromptu jump into Lake Washington, Craig and his friend came back to his place to change.
I came out of the shower and he was handling my rifle that I shot recreationally. And I took the gun from him and pulled the trigger as I was taking it away from him, and it shot him and killed him. Obviously my gun, my apartment, so my responsibility. I called the police, and then basically that was the start of my prison journey.
Because Craig didn't have a criminal record, not even a speeding ticket, the court was lenient.
Got exceptionally low sentence, so I only did 48 months.
The first 2 years of Craig's sentence were filled with long days of doing nothing.
At Clallam Bay, you wake up, go eat, come back, watch some TV, maybe play cards with some of the fellas, go work out for an hour, because that's all your outside time at that prison.
But in 2006, he was transferred to the Cedar Creek Correction Center south of Olympia.
It's not your typical concrete and steel fortress. Cedar Creek's set up more like wilderness retreat. As
part of the rehabilitation process, everyone at Cedar Creek is given a job.
What's really nice about this place is you don't have people sitting around doing nothing. So you don't have any idle time. Everybody's busy either working or going to school or learning something.
Craig was assigned to work in the composting area. Instead of empty, lethargic days, he turned his attention to studying food decomposition.
I was collecting all this data just for the benefit of collecting it, and I decided to write documentation of what we were doing.
I've got these separated out by species.
Craig asked the warden to send his data to an ecology professor at nearby Evergreen State College, Nalini Nadkarni. Nadkarni had introduced the idea of composting to Cedar Creek a few years earlier. She was thrilled with Craig's work and decided to mentor him in his research.
Hey, Craig!
How's it going? Obviously, it took a lot of manipulation to get there, but it was cool that she had seen some potential.
Nalini and Craig's collaboration has been unusually successful.
The economic effect of recycling in your prison in CCCC and extrapolating that up.
The two have co-authored a paper which is attracting international attention.
It's actually getting published this month in Ecology, Development, and Sustainability, which is a worldwide ecology journal.
Craig wasn't the first inmate Nalini Nadkarni had worked with. In fact, she had come to Cedar Creek a few years earlier looking for help with a scientific project about moss.
There's a whole industry now that involves harvesting mosses. That's over $265 million a year. About 95% of that comes out of old-growth Pacific Northwest forests.
For decades, illegal harvesters have stripped Northwest forests of moss to sell to florists worldwide who use them in flower arrangements. But because moss grows so slowly, removing it is wreaking havoc on forest ecosystems.
That really begs the question of what can we do as an alternative?
Nadkarni wanted to find out if certain strains of moss could be grown commercially. What she needed was people with lots of time on their hands who could watch moss grow.
What part of the public is out there that really gets no contact with nature and has no environmental education and very little opportunity to help solve environmental problems? The obvious answer is prisoners. This is the notebook that one of the prisoners was taking notes in. It's in Spanish, actually.
The project was a big success, so Nadkarni asked the prison if she could expand her involvement. The prison said yes.
And every month I brought a scientist in or an environmental practitioner in to talk about some aspect of ecology and some aspect of sustainability.
To her surprise, prison administrators put many of the ideas into action.
And literally afterwards, we would just say, well, what do you think? And they said, well, let's do that. And then we would turn around and we would just do those things.
So now Cedar Creek has an organic garden.
A garden that produces 15,000 pounds of fresh veggies each summer.
It has a vermiculture project, it has moss roofs, it has a beekeeping operation. All of those projects sort of took off because of this initial spark of the moss growing project.
The new programs are all a part of Cedar Creek's zero waste policy.
Pretty soon we were composting 70 pounds of food a day, and this is a ton a month.
And anything that can't be composted is recycled.
From October '04 till now, it's in excess of 100 tons that we've recycled to this facility as a way to offset operating costs.
But beyond the environmental and financial gains, there are the education and rehabilitation benefits to the inmates.
We're talking 1 out of every 99 people in America is incarcerated in some way. So if you take that one person out of 100 and teach them sustainable living, then you're actually coming up with a pretty good amount of people. That's 3 million people.
Superintendent Hisami Yoshida says the inmates are gaining a greater connection to nature.
As far as the offenders go, most of these guys come from urban areas, and they've never been in the woods, and they've never grown gardens, and so they're not really very connected to how any of that stuff happens.
You get to see the wildlife, so you're actually saying, okay, well that really does happen.
To have hands-on something that you didn't even know that affected the environment, to do your part. I mean, it's a wonderful thing.
If you're not actively working to rehabilitate them, they are actively working to become better criminals.
They kind of guide us give us a sense of direction and a sense of purpose in life.
Craig Ehrlich is now out of prison. Since he was released a few months ago, he has been working full-time at a deli in downtown Seattle. But he's using everything he learned at Cedar Creek to get his academic life back on track.
I got accepted to the University of Nevada, Reno's biochemistry PhD program, and they gave me a full scholarship and living stipend, so I start that in August.
And so now, Craig hopes the research he did while at Cedar Creek will continue to spark interest and motivate more facilities to focus on sustainability.
This program shows that once you seed this thought into these people's mind, it can really take off. And Cedar Creek's a great example of the possibility of doing this.
Well, Craig is one of several inmates who have re-entered society with a renewed sense of what's possible. And that's encouraging when you look at the U.S. prison system. 1 out of every 100 people in the U.S. is behind bars. That's the highest incarceration rate of any country in the world. Housing 3 million people is costly. We spend about $60 billion each year on corrections, about $40,000 per prisoner. And because tax dollars are funding this escalating system, the Washington Department of Corrections is hopeful that Cedar Creek will be a model for other institutions to follow.